Now it's my pleasure to introduce the final keynote for this global forum, and that is Hunter Lovins, who is an environmentalist and an author, and also co-founded the Rocky Mountain Institute. And she is going to come up and give us some final reflections.
Thank you. I'm sort of none of those things. Google me. One thing that I have done that might be of interest is invent 2 business schools. The school that I teach at now, Bard MBA, across the East River, embeds these concepts in every class we teach. It's not an elective. It's not a bolt-on. It's not a saddlebag. We teach accounting and finance and marketing and all the business verticals from the standpoint of how do you honorably do business in this time of global crisis. I said, have courage. We're going to need more than courage, folks. We are in real trouble. We are losing life on this planet at a faster rate than when the dinosaurs went extinct. That's the biodiversity crisis. We live at a time of inequality unprecedented since perhaps just before the Great Depression, and it is, says Thomas Piketty, causative of collapse. We are in a global climate crisis. We hit 426 parts per million concentration of CO2. What's that noise? We have a storm coming at us. And the smoke is coming back. Next week, those of you here in New York, those of you in the Midwest are going to be smoked out again because of the Canadian wildfires, which will burn until it snows. Are you teaching this? If not, you're irrelevant. Sorry, business as taught today is irrelevant. We're going to lose human civilization. And I personally want to thank every one of you because you're here in this room because you do care. Bob Chapman gave one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard. And I've heard him give this speech several times. And boy, today he really nailed it. In part because he told stories, and in part because he spoke from his own heart. So let me tell you a little story. This time a year ago, I was going to quit. I was going to hang up my spurs. My husband's been after me to retire. I sat on the board of a little battery company that happily exited, and this amazing amount of money deposited in my bank account. I learned something. I've always sat on nonprofit boards. Sit on for-profit boards. They have stock options. Who knew? And so I was asking myself, you look at everything that I do. I teach here at Fordham. Michael Pearson keeps dragooning me into coming, and Jim Stoner. I teach at Bard. I teach in the Open Society Global Network, the Global Classroom. I consult. The last 2 months I've been in Europe consulting for a whole bunch of companies, giving speeches. I've got 16 bloody books, one of which actually might be of interest to you. It's a book called A Finer Future, Creating an Economy in Service to Life. Is it enough? No. No, we're losing. Do I know what enough is? No. Then why go down the road? Why burn carbon? I could make Rob happy, stay home, ride my horse, watch an eagle fly. I'll hang up my spurs. The guy who invented Now Partners, of which I'm a managing partner, asked would I come to Munich, Rome, Assisi, help him run workshops, the Be for Good Leaders Summit in Rome, and then a retreat in Assisi. Yes. When I got fired out of Rocky Mountain Institute, I invented it, and 20 years later, they fired me for saving the outfit. This man, Walter Link, gave me his nonprofit into which to raise money to build Natural Capitalism, which I still run today. So when Walter says jump, I get airborne, ask how high on the way up. So yeah, I'll come. But Leaving my ranch, I thought, this will be my last trip. And I wondered to myself idly, driving to Denver Airport, will I ever again find something into which I can pour all of me? And if I'm going to hang up my spurs, the answer is no. That was a bleak thought, but I thought, dig your head out. You got a job of work to do. Go serve Walter, and you can whine when you're home. Life is what happens to you when you're planning to do something else. Got to Munich, very senior UN official with whom I had fought happily for the prior 2 years, came up, and actually he got up, gave a speech on regenerative agriculture, which I could have given. Regenerative agriculture is, by the way, half of the solution to the climate crisis. Take the excess carbon out of the air, put it in the soil. We know how between 60 to 100 years' time we get back to 280 parts per million concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, the amount that was there when humans evolved. The amount that's now in the atmosphere is higher than has ever been since humans have been walking the earth. Think about that. And that has happened in the last 200 years. Half of it since 1985, most of it since the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. We have had now, we're going on COP 28. This button is COP 3, Kyoto. Are we doing any good? That's a yes or no question. No. And this COP will be the oilistocracy. At the last COP 27, $60 billion oil deals were inked while we thought we were talking about climate. So this guy gets up, gives a speech on regenerative agriculture I could have given. And I thought, So I walked up to him, stuck out my paw, said, howdy, my name's Hunter Lovins. He laughed. He said, I know who you are. Like, yeah, probably so after 2 years of my fighting you. I said, I may have been wrong about you. And we sat down and talked, and he pitched me on an idea. And I'm going to frustrate the hell out of you. I can't tell you what it is yet. Watch this space. If we can do it, when we do it, it will be a huge chunk of the solution to the climate crisis. And I thought, whoa, that's big. It's too big. I have no earthly idea how to do it, nor do I know anybody who could. We wound up spending some time together, and whom I thought was a standard UN bureaucrat turned out to be wickedly funny and a real diplomat. And somewhere in the middle of conversations, I thought, I think he can do it. And somewhere else in the middle of the conversations, he asked if I would help. And I said, let's see, I'm working 6 jobs. I've told Rob I'm going to retire. And I looked at him and I said, I will ride for your brand. I said, you have no idea what I just said, but you'll figure it out. And so we are co-entrepreneuring this big idea. I still have no idea how to do it, but we'll figure it out. This, I would implore you, is what to teach your students. We have no idea how to solve all of the problems in front of us. And I say this to my students first day of class. We're making this up as we go along. The word sustainability entered the English language in 1972 in the book Limits to Growth, written by Dana Meadows. How many of you have seen Dana's Places to Intervene in a System? Whoa, come on, there's your homework. Go read Places to Intervene in a System, and you will find there are 2 different versions of it. One with 9, what you saw on the board earlier from Peter Senge, that was taken from Dana's. Peter was one of Dana's students. The first one has 9 places to intervene. The second one has 12. Dana refined it as she went along. Sustainability entered the English language the year I graduated college. So I say to my students, if I say something and you think it's wrong, please challenge me. You could well be right. If I were any damn good, we'd have solved these problems. It is going to take all of us. And it is going to take every shred of imagination and skill and learning and courage that every one of you in this room has. Or we lose. And it's not given that humanity continues. Michael said earlier, the earth will be fine without us. There's a great George Carlin skit. The earth will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. The earth will be fine. It's humans who are in trouble, and a lot of species that we are taking with us. And that's kind of sad and kind of irresponsible. And we know what we need to do. Implement renewable energy. How many of you have read Rethinking Humanity by Tony Seba? We need a little bit of business literacy here. Tony's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. You can download it for free from his site, RethinkX. Rethinking Humanity. I think it's one of the most important pieces written in recent memory. Tony walks through why the next decade is going to be the most disruptive in human history, and not having to do with the potential collapse of civilization. Tony predicted in 2014 that by 2030, the world would be powered by renewable energy. We had a little problem in this country with an election, and it may take to 2035, but it is happening. Credit Suisse, back when there was a Credit Suisse, predicted by 2025, solar will be at 1 cent per kilowatt hour. Nothing competes with that, not even energy efficiency. We're going to carpet the earth with solar panels. And yes, there is plenty of the rare earths to do that. Yes, we're going to have electric cars. We're going to have driverless cars. And we know the technologies to solve this problem. The other half is regenerative agriculture. Take the excess carbon out, put it in the ground. Stop telling people to eat freaking vegetables. Regeneratively grazed cattle is probably the most sustainable food you can eat. It's got to be regeneratively grazed. Industrial agriculture is evil, full stop, agreed. But buy from your local farmers. Understand what it is they're doing to rebuild the health of the soil. And when you do that, you can largely eliminate poverty around the world. World Food Program right now is working with farmers in the Sahel. The women dig little half moons about from here to those chairs, put manure in it, plant a tree that begins to provide shade. They now have crops. They do this one after another, and they are re-greening the Sahel. To do that, you have to have the manure. You have to have the grazing animals. So don't eat meat. You consign humans to irrelevance. Get the facts right. Learn the science. How many of you teach the planetary boundaries? A couple. Please go read Johan Rockström, The Science on the Planetary Boundaries. The SDGs are great. I helped create them. I was the last person to speak to the open working group before they took it to the General Assembly. Yes, they're a very good metric. They are not the guide. The guide is the planetary boundaries. What does humanity have to do to live within the planetary boundaries? And as Michael Pearson said, provide enough for all that we all have dignity. Kate Raworth's Donut Economics. Kate, by the way, wrote the foreword to A Finer Future. She's a dear friend. The material is there for your classes. Whatever class you teach, any of the business verticals. Accounting, Bob says he's an humble accountant. Yeah, you're right. You've heard the phrase triple bottom line. How many of you teach keeping 3 sets of books? Yeah. Business has a bottom line. And as Raj said, businesses need to make profit. If I can show you that behaving responsibly to people and planet is just better business. Now you bake it into everything you do. We call it the integrated bottom line. We also call it regenerative value creation. How many of you teach John Fullerton, regenerative capitalism? A couple of you, good on you. You guys have a lot of homework. Again, download it for free from John's website, Capital Institute. John was 18 years JP Morgan, left as managing director, quit, walked away, said there is something rotten in Wall Street, and then started writing. John also now offers cohorts in regenerative economics. I advise all my students to sign up to take it, but at least understand what this word regenerative means. It's not just a synonym for sustainability. It's not just the latest buzzword. It has real meaning to it. Michael talked about Homo erectus, Homo habilis. Humans almost went extinct. There was a tribe of pre-humans. Pre-humans were down to the number of the now endangered mountain gorilla. We know this from the archaeology. Many of these tribes went extinct. There was one in southern Africa where they buried toothless old men. Margaret Mead was asked, what is the sign of civilization? She said it is a healed big bone, leg bone. So when you break a leg bone, if there's no one to take care of you, you die. So if somebody takes care of you long enough that the bone can heal, she said that's the sign of civilization. In this cave in southern Africa, they found this skull of a toothless old man. To become old and toothless, somebody's taking care of you. They found skeletons of disabled people, differentially abled people, cripples, to be blunt, to lovingly buried. To be crippled in the animal world is to die. Why does this matter? Because the DNA from that cave is in you, every one of you. These were our ancestors. So my challenge to you, become good ancestors. Thank you.